A woman is walking through the park when she sees a very attractive man sitting on a park bench. He's reading a book and eating some fruit out of a Tupperware container. Slowly, the woman gathers the courage to go ask the man out. So, she walks over and takes a seat next to him on the bench, turns to him and says, "Sorry to bother you. I know this may be a little forward, but I would love to grab coffee with you sometime." Flattered, the man responds, "Sure, but what makes you so certain you and I would get along so well?" "Well," the woman says, "a couple things actually. I noticed you were wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt. Iron Maiden are my favorite band of all time. When they went on their reunion tour in 1999, my parents took me to see them in Cleveland. I was 12 years old. It was the first concert I ever went to. I absolutely love Iron Maiden." The man can't believe it. "I saw them play Cleveland in '99, first concert I ever went to on my own. My best friend Jimmy Spitz and I told our parents we were sleeping at each other's houses, snuck out, took a bus into the city, and saw them play at the Plain Dealer Pavilion." Naturally, they're both shocked. "If that isn't weird enough," says the woman, "I noticed you're reading Mark Twain. I was a communications major in university, and I actually wrote my thesis on Mark Twain, how he used satire as a lens to comment on current events of the time, comparing him to satirical news sources of today. He's my favorite author." Now the man is really taken aback. "Get out of here. I was an English major in university. I specialized in 19th century American literature. This is like my fourth or fifth time reading Tom Sawyer. I absolutely love Mark Twain." They both can't believe it. This has got to be a match made in heaven. "Okay," the woman says. "Well, buckle up, because here's the icing on the cake. I noticed you're eating a prune. Prunes are my absolute favorite fruit. When I was a kid, my grandfather lived on a farm. He had an orchard that mainly grew apples and some lemons, but he knew how much my sister and I loved prunes, so he kept a couple of plum trees. Every year at the end of the summer, we'd go up and harvest the plums with him. He'd dry them, and by the time we'd go back to his place for Thanksgiving, he'd always have those prunes saved just for us. They're my favorite fruit. I love prunes. You're eating a prune. This has got to be fate. What do you say?" The man puts down his fruit and responds, "It's a date." An atheist dies and goes to hell. The devil welcomes him and says, "Let me show you around a little bit." They walk through a nice park with green trees, and the devil shows him a huge palace. "This is your house now. Here are your keys." The man is happy and thanks the devil. The devil says, "No need to say thank you. Everyone gets a nice place to live in when they come down here." They continue walking through the nice park, flowers everywhere, and the devil shows the atheist a garage full of beautiful cars. "These are your cars now," and hands the man all the car keys. Again, the atheist tries to thank the devil, but he only says, "Everyone down here gets some cool cars. How would you drive around without having cars?" They walk on, and the area gets even nicer. There are birds chirping, squirrels running around, kittens everywhere. They arrive at a fountain where the most beautiful woman the atheist has ever seen sits on a bench. She looks at him, and they instantly fall in love with each other. The man couldn't be any happier. The devil says, "Everyone gets to have their soulmate down here. We don't want anyone to be lonely." As they walk on, the atheist notices a high fence. He peeks to the other side and is totally shocked. There are people in pools of lava, screaming in pain, while little devils run around and stab them with their tridents. Other devils are skinning people alive, heads are spiked, and many more terrible things are happening. A stench of sulfur is in the air. Terrified, the man stumbles backwards and asks the devil, "What is going on there?" The devil just shrugs and says, "Those are the Christians. I don't know why, but they prefer it that way." A man and a woman in a village get married, and after a few years, they weren't having a baby. Owing to family pressure to have a baby, the man decides to consult a temple priest. The priest agrees to help him and visit him that night to see how he does it. Since the village doesn't have electricity, priest asks the man to bring a lantern. The priest arrives that night, and since it's dark in the room, the man is ready with the lantern. The priest holds the lantern, then asks him to do what he does. The priest notices that the man is doing clumsy things and clearly doesn't know how to have sex. The priest asks the man to stop, come out of bed, hold the lantern, and watch the priest do it. The man holds the lantern and watches as the priest goes down on her wife with slow kisses and licks on her vagina. He slides to her breast and does some breast play. The woman, who was deprived of sex, starts to enjoy, and as soon as the priest puts his manhood into her womanhood, she moans in ecstasy and comes. The priest gets off the bed proudly and says, "This is how it's done. I am sure you have learnt the art, and if you repeat it multiple times, then by God's grace, you will be blessed with a baby soon." The priest then gets transferred to another town far away and lives there for few years. He gets a chance to visit the village again after 5 years and decides to see that man. When he reaches his house, he sees that there are 5 kids playing in his front yard. He is very happy to see the progress that man made. He knocks the door, and the same man opens the door and is very surprised and happy to see the priest. The priest then goes on to congratulate him on becoming a father and asks if the training helped. The man says, "Yeah, that was easier than I thought. I just had to hold the lantern." The devil sat at the gates of hell. An old man suddenly arrived in a burst of flames, looking confused and lost. The devil looked at his paperwork and frowned. He was unable to find this old man's data file. "This can't be right," the old man grumbled, looking at the devil. "I've been a good man my whole life." The devil nodded apologetically. Most people said this when they arrived at hell. "Why don't you start with how you died, and we'll figure it out," he said. The old man sighed and said, "Well, I was out with minding my grandchildren, enjoying a fun day out. I don't get the grandchildren often because my eyesight is starting to fade, but we were having the most wonderful time. And that's when everything went crazy. Out of nowhere, I spotted the largest, most grotesque mouse I've ever seen moving towards us. It was absolutely enormous, and that's when it moved. Straight towards the grandchildren first, limbs outstretched. You don't know where mice have been. What if it had have bitten one of them? Can you imagine if they got rabies on my watch?" "So what did you do?" the devil whispered, entranced by the story. He was munching on a box of popcorn. The old man continued, "You don't get how big this mouse was. Radiation it must have been. Too many phones these days. That's what causes it. I did the only thing I could. I grabbed my walking stick and I cracked it over the head. Now my eyesight isn't that good anymore, but I whacked it good." The kids started screaming at this point. You know how they get when you have to kill an animal. But I needed to keep going. You see, with mice, you need to see their guts to know they're dead. Otherwise, they'll be back with others. "So you killed it?" the devil asked. Some of his demigods had come to listen to the story. The old man nodded. "By golly, I did." Guts and all were splattered for all to see. The kids had lost their mind at this point. Tears everywhere. A crowd had gathered as well, all screaming at the sight. It was at this point, though, that the exertion caught up with me. I felt my heart give way. I must have suffered a heart attack. Next thing I know, I'm here. "Well," the devil said, concerned, "this doesn't seem to add up. Let me just give heaven a call, and we'll try and see what's going on here." The devil pulled up a phone from thin air and dialed a number. "Hey, Jesus, bro," the devil said. "I think I've got one of yours here. His story checks out. Must have been a mix-up." The devil nodded as a voice on the phone spoke back to him. He gave the old man a silent celebratory thumbs up as the voice continued. The devil covered the phone speaker with his hand, turned to the old man and said, "You're all good? They just want to know where you were when you died?" The old man nodded. "Oh, that's easy. I was at Disneyland." My friends, If you want to watch other funny jokes, subscribe to the channel.